going to ask you about your BEP conversations.
Yeah.
You're meeting with the superintendents this week.
So,
what's your pitch?
It'll probably be next week.
Okay.
So we're trying to pull it together. I think we're going to meet next Monday. It's not all set. So obviously I want to listen to them, number one. Number two, I think one of the points we'll make is if you look at states' contribution to K-12 education, in the last 4 years, Tennessee would be at the top of the list in terms of percentage of budget. So that being said, we understand the concerns they have. There's also concerns from small schools as well. So our challenge, obviously, is we're always going to work to not just adequately fund education, but to do it in the right way with the best outcomes. And I think superintendents actually have a unique insight in that, because like us, they're not just, obviously they want more money, but they're concerned with outcomes as well.
But in this case, they are concerned with money.
Sure.
And you've got five that have already voted to say, yes, we're going to file suit. There's a prospect of 3 or 4 more.
Right. So,
and these are urban and rural, so it's like they want a bigger pie.
No question. There's no question that's true. But I mean, you all know, you watch us wrestle through the budget every year. It's not actually really easy for us to increase that pie. And again, my point would be, look at our track record, including this year where we put additional $44 million into BP and almost $100 million into teacher salaries. I mean, in some fairly lean years while we've been here the last 4 years, we have a good track record of investing in education. I understand they would like more. We'd like to be able to do that too. I think one point I would make is this: I'm not certain that suing people ever helps the conversation. I mean, once we're in litigation with people, you have a little different conversation because you realize everything you say can end up in court.
Well, should they actually file suit, and should that go to court and be found, against you guys? How would you fund that? Like, how would you do that?
A lot of hypotheticals there. Obviously, they have to sue, and then we have to. We would obviously make a case that we've made real progress in funding education. If that happens, I don't know what we would do. I mean, again, the budget challenges in Tennessee aren't unique. But they are real, and so we work hard to try to allocate that the best we can. Again, if you look at where we've consistently made funding efforts, it's been around education since we've been in office.
I guess what I'm curious is, do you think in order to even fund that, you'd have to consider tax increases? Like, what's the repercussions if this actually...
it's just too hard to say. I mean, who knows? What kind of costs are we talking about? I mean, I don't think there's a whole lot of appetite in the General Assembly, nor from us, for a real tax increase.
On that note, Governor, tomorrow morning in the legislature, there's a couple of committees taking up several hall tax reductions that you talked about, but also the bill from the leaders that would roll back the sales tax rate. I'm assuming you're against both of those bills?
Well, we are. I mean, like I said, my issue is one of just having the right base of revenue in the state. My concern is we have a very narrow revenue base. We basically live off sales tax and then some business tax, and then the hall tax, which is another 280 million. But if you compare that to most states' revenue bases, ours is very narrow. Other states don't have an income tax, have something else. Florida's got tourism, Texas and North Dakota have mineral resources, et cetera. We're one of the only states that's doing what we're doing without an additional other source of revenue. We're doing it very well. I'm not complaining. We shouldn't change that. But we should also just realize we have a very narrow revenue base, and every time you make it more narrow, makes it more difficult in tough times. And if you had a decision like BEP go against you, it just makes it that much harder to climb out of the hole.
Governor, an audit last year found that Achievement School District overspent $60,000 or more, mismanaged their funds. Now Representative Mike Stewart is asking you to conduct an investigation into ASD. Have you heard anything about this? Or
I actually haven't, but I'll say this. ASD is doing really good work in Memphis and in Nashville of taking students that have been in the very lowest 5% performing schools. A lot of people have given up on those kids, and we have some professional, caring educators who've said, no, that's where I want to. That's where I want to involve my profession. It's what I want to do with my life. Who've jumped in those situations, and I think people should be cheering for the ASD and saying we want it to succeed, because it is a map out of the bottom for a lot of schools that have been in the bottom for too long.
Would you be willing to more oversight of this organization? Because I know it's still in its early stages. It's only been around for a few years, and because it's dealing with something so important, do you think it deserves more oversight?
Well, I mean, obviously, every bit of accountability that we can have is good, but again, I'd come back to say, let's go for the real in-depth look at something, not just the surface look, and say, how are they doing at attracting great teachers who are willing to give their lives for kids that are at the bottom of the pecking order. And I think what you'll see is some people that are really making a big difference.
Can you tell us a little bit more about the investment in Smyrna that we heard about today?
Yeah, so we'll obviously have an announcement tomorrow, but it's we're really excited about it. It's a lot of jobs and a good financial investment, and it's probably all it's appropriate to say right now.
Can't tell us like the industry, like any more about like what?
No, I mean, like I said, we'll have a good announcement with all the principals there tomorrow.
Governor, you've recently been very clear in your opposition to allowing Tennesseans to carry guns without a permit. But at one point, you did say that you would sign that legislation if it ever got to your desk. Is that changed, or does that still hold true?
Well, I think if you look back over the last several years in Tennessee, we've passed a lot of legislation that was predicated on the fact that, well, these folks all have permits. You know, guns in bars, guns in parks, you know, et cetera. It is all predicated on the fact that these are folks, hey, that are highly trained, and we don't have those same issues. And so I just think it's fair to the voters of Tennessee, now that we've done all that, to say, you know, we did it all with that kind of presupposition. One more guy.
Do you have any? Have you given any consideration to reviving Insure Tennessee before the end of the?
You know, we've talked a lot about it, but as I've said before, there has to be a path. Something has to either change where we sense enough legislators have changed, are willing to consider it, or we have a different approach. Well, on the different approach, and we really feel like we got the very best deal we could out of Washington. A lot of people are like, well, you can go negotiate a better deal. Well, if you look at other states, I think we negotiated the very best deal that's been done. We have an assurance that it's not going to cost Tennessee anything. We have an assurance we can get out of it. We have everything down that you could know. So I'm not certain, you know, people say, well, go back and ask for this. Well, everything that we could ask for, we did, and we got everything that we think in the end that they will give us. We asked for a lot of things that they said no to, but we think we got everything that they will give us.
With regards to Insure Tennessee, both Representatives Jim Cooper and Steve Cohen have been pretty forthright about their opinion of your, I guess, leadership. And that, do you have any suggestions for them on how they could, I guess, make the federal government better respond to the needs of Tennesseans?
Well, I mean, I think that works. I mean, the issue, as I said from the very beginning, was it's going to be hard to get something out of Washington I could get approved in Nashville. And that was a challenge on both ends. At the end of the day, I got something that I could live with out of Washington. But if you truly did have more flexibility, if you truly did let states make more of a determination about how to use that money effectively, it would be an easier sell. I mean, the reality is a lot of folks in our legislature said, we don't trust that the federal government's going to come through with that. And that lack of trust from people saying, you know, well, he said if you like your insurance, you can keep it. You know, that lack of trust, that hurt us in the end.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.